Ever since I bought and rebuilt my crash-damaged Hyundai I30N, I've been dying to do this to it. And I know what you're thinking, I lost the plot. Well, there is a little story behind all of this. When I was bidding on this car, I made a bet with my friend because I didn't think it was going to do that well on YouTube, whereas he was sure it was going to be a hit. So the bet was that if the first video on this car did over 100,000 views, then I would have to buy and fit a wide body to the car. And it looks like I lost the bet. No! Now, thanks to you guys for supporting the channel and watching the first video on this car, I now have to go to Germany to pick up the body kit for it. So we are back at the Nürburgring, magically teleported from my garage, and we are sat here with Benji at the tail end of our trip taking the BMW around the Nürburgring. And we now have to go and do a short drive 2 hours north to see a company which have built something especially for my i30N. And that 2 hour drive is now complete, and that brings us down to Prior Design. Prior are a German company which specialise in the design and manufacture of aftermarket body kits for a wide variety of cars. Now, I've got to say that some of these kits are nicer than others, but the one that I'm here for is the i30N wide body kit, which they did actually have one in the showroom, but I'm not going to show you that yet. Now, Uncle Benji took a liking to this kit, but he was curious whether I thought I could get mine as good as the one in this showroom. Honestly, probably not. But we'll try our best, we'll see what we can do. So we've picked up the body kit for the i30N. I'm not 100% sure if this is going to fit, because this is the splitter for that, and, well, we've got luggage in the boot as well. What are you thinking through there, Ben?
I think we might about just get her in.
You reckon?
No.
I'm in here.
You're in?
I'm in, yeah.
We're in. Yeah.
That's in, yeah, that's the biggest bit.
Happy days.
Yeah, that's good. What do you reckon to the kit?
I mean, that doesn't look like £5,000 there, does it?
No, it doesn't.
But, you know, hopefully it does when it's on the car, eh?
Well, yeah, well, it might hopefully look something like one in there. So we very carefully loaded up the questionably packed body kit around the luggage which we already had in the car. Then all I had to do was pay my outstanding balance on the bill, and then we can try and get the kit back onto home soil and get it onto my car. And now we've got the kit back home, we can take a proper look over what I've bought and see if I've wasted my money or not. Prior Design is the only company I'm aware of that make a wide body kit for the i30N, and when you lay it out on the car, it doesn't look like there's actually a lot here. The kit does also come with a splitter, a spoiler, and a diffuser, but it is still a pretty expensive kit considering it's fiberglass. And with that being considered, you expect it to fit pretty damn well. But with the current shape that my car is in, I don't think any kit would fit well. I haven't pointed it out yet, but here we go. So you can see we've got a massive panel gap on this side of the bumper where the car wasn't actually damaged, and as we get over to the other side, we can see that closes right up. I'm actually very happy with the side that we've repaired and the panel gaps for everything here. But on the driver's side, you can see, again, the bonnet doesn't quite line up right, and nothing is it's just not quite sitting right, especially on this wing here. And I want to give myself the best chance of fitting that expensive body kit to my car the best possible way, and to do that, I've got to sort this out first. And here is where I'm going to start. Now, I've already changed the hinges over to a new pair which match the colour of the car, but the bonnet just doesn't seem to be quite sitting right no matter how I play with it. So what I've done, I've gone and bought some brand new ones from Hyundai. We're going to fit those up, and fingers crossed they make it fit a little bit better than it is at the moment. So to do that, I've got to take off the windscreen scuttle and the wiper arms to be able to access the bolts for where the hinges mount to the body of the car, and then we can undo the bolts on there and also on the bonnet to replace the hinges one at a time. It's still not 100%, but it's definitely a lot better. I'm now going to start tackling the first corner for the wide arch, and that is going to be this passenger side front wing. I've taped up the wing so it gives me an easier place to draw a template. Next thing to do, get the wheel off and get the wheel arch liner out. But just before we get into that, I need to tell you quickly about Carly.
Carly?
Yes, Carly. Well, what is Carly, I can hear you ask? Well, it's what I like to consider the future of diagnostics and coding. So all you have to do is plug it in, turn on the ignition, and fire up the app. Because by using that little dongle and an app on your phone, you can do so much with your car. Now, once you've selected your make and model of car, like I have here with my BMW 1 Series, you can then easily run diagnostics on your car at the click of a button, like this. Now, while that's loading, the thing that I love about Carly is it's super portable, so you can keep all of this stuff in your car very easily for exactly when you need it. So now my diagnostics report is back, and we can see that I have 10 fault codes. So let's see the results. oh no, the health status on my car is very bad. Really puts things in layman's terms. So using their smart mechanic tips, it then gives you ideas about what it could take to fix the fault codes which is flagged up on your car. So it's not only finding the fault codes for you, it's helping you fix them too. And there's a bunch of features that you can turn on your car which is going to completely transform your ownership experience. Because manufacturers keep features from you when you buy your car, and using Carly, you can easily turn these on. Like on my car, I was able to do a whole load of things, including putting a digital speedo on the dashboard. And now you can see just down here we have miles per hour displayed in digital form. So to grab yourself a Carly connected car reader, go to my link in the description or use the discount code on screen right now, and that's going to save you some money on unlocking the full potential from your car. But for now, thank you Carly for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to work on this Hyundai. It always surprises me how little these arch lines are held in with. It's just a few screws and a few clips and they just pop right out. So this is the first arch which I'm going to fit, and like I said, this is the passenger side front, so you can see roughly where this mounts, but the problem is until you cut the arch away you can't see exactly how it's going to go. So what I'm going to start by doing is cutting to this line here, the outer one, the bigger one out of the two, and that should hopefully then give me enough to at least gauge how much of the car I need to cut away. I'm going to take the bumper off before I do it, and then yeah, it should give me a basis to work from since this is the first corner I'm doing. I don't want to balls it up. So before I can start chopping up my car, I've just got to pop the bumper off, along with any other trims which are going to get in the way. And now there's no turning back, so using an angle grinder I can cut away the bit of the arch which I no longer need to make way for that wide body. And for those of you wondering how it feels to chop the arches off your car, well, it's not pretty, I'll tell you that for nothing. And by the way, if at this point you're watching this video and you're not subscribed, what are you playing at? Because look at the extents I'm going through to provide you with that finest quality entertainment. So go down there and whack on that subscribe button before this video's over. It's free. After I cut the arch for the first time, I realised I was a million miles off from where I needed to be, so I recut the arch more towards the outer edge of where it needed to be, and then this time round it fit much better. So now you can get an idea of how this kit is going to look. It's definitely a lot more subtle than the 350Z kit that we fitted way at the start of the channel. I want you to leave a comment down below if you've been watching since then. And this kit is a lot more expensive than that, but you can see why when you go to push it up, because with the 350Z one, you really had to fight to get it into place. But as you can see here, with very little pressure, it's really butting up nicely against the bodywork. So it kind of just sits really, really tight against the standard wing. Now this means that you could, if you wanted to, I think, get away with just painting the kit and sticking it directly on without painting the other panels if you've got a straight car. But I think what I'm going to do with this one when I come round to it is bond it obviously to the wing itself, and then also smooth it in ever so slightly just to take away that ever so fine gap just there, and it will look a lot more, well, neater. So after I'd learnt my lessons from the first side that we'd cut away on the damaged side of the car, I could then turn my attention to the undamaged side and hopefully do this side a lot cleaner. But as you'll see very shortly, this side was a little bit more complicated for an inexplicable reason. Now one thing I wanted to do on both sides was make sure the cut was as nice as I could get it. I'm not the best with an angle grinder, but I wanted to make sure it was as neat as possible, so I just run around both of the cuts with this finger sander before hitting them with some etch primer just to protect the paintwork slightly. Right, it's the next morning and I've made a start on some of the next parts for the wide arch on the i30N, mainly being getting some protective paints down on the wings where I've cut them so the bare metal doesn't start corroding. I am going to use something more after the primer to then protect it further. And the next part I need to do is the bumper. So this is the piece here which fits on the bumper and it goes somewhere around there, I think something like that. So what I need to do is cut away a section of the bumper itself, but I need to retain the vent just here. So luckily this one has already kind of snapped out of the rivet, but I'm going to drill that one out there and these two out here, and then I can remove these vents, cut away what I need to cut away, and then we can look at bonding the arch extensions onto the bumper and also the car itself. So it's not that it's particularly technically challenging, but it's just knowing that once you cut it, there is no going back, so there's no second chances. So I start by very carefully drilling out the rivets which hold this little vent in place, splitting my time between the two to keep the plastic nice and cool and to stop it melting. So then we can mock it back onto the car and use the arch which we're going to mount on the wing to help us position the extension which goes on the front bumper too.
It's always like this, I know it.
And once that's in place, we can then put a line on where we need to cut and get it back off the car and start chopping. So I want to be a little bit less aggressive on the bumper than it was on the wings because this is plastic. I think I'm going to go in with a Dremel with a little cutting disc and just go just past this line, which should then hopefully give me enough room to be able to slot on the over fender, and then I can get it bonded on and lined up with the wings as well. So I start to hack away at the bumper and take away the section that I need to remove in order to fit the arch extension. And because this is plastic, it cuts super easy, but there was a little bit of a knack to getting this to fit right because I had to trim some extra material off the top where it would meet the wing normally. But with a bit of trial and error, we got there in the end, and now that new piece is sitting much more flush, and then we can just tidy it up with that little finger sander and then turn our attention onto the other side. Now I wanted to keep these vents in the bumpers functional too, so I had to trim away a bit of the overarch in order to allow that vent to sit into it. So now we can pop the bumper back on the car and then we can start looking at pushing forward with this body kit. So here is now where I'm up to. I'm ready to start bonding on the arches and the bumper kind of extensions which go here. And this is where fiberglass kits really do let themselves down sometimes because, say for example on this side, it all fits really well and nicely. And it looks like it's going to line up pretty well with the arch. But if we take a trip round to the other side of the car, it is not looking so good. So when I try and line this side up, this is what I've got. I either have a big gap here and have this piece down here way off, or well, there is just no, it just won't line up basically. That's the closest it'll be, kind of just about there. But that is not acceptable. And then if I'm to position it how the other side sits, then the gap is like that. So with that being the case, I'm going to start easy on myself and do this side and then work my way up to doing that side, I think. And so we can start sticking the body kit to the car, but first we just scotch the area to make sure the glue is going to adhere as best as possible. Now, if you're wondering what glue I'm using, I'm actually going to be using Tiger Seal to hold this kit on, and I know that might sound crazy, but hear me out. When using panel bonds and things like that, they actually tend to dry really brittle, which means they do have a habit of snapping and not necessarily being the strongest choice for something which is going to need a little bit of flex in it. Along with that, panel bond will be really expensive in the amounts that I'm going to need to bond this kit on, and that is exactly the reason why I've chosen Tiger Seal. 1, it's super strong, 2, it's super cheap, and 3, it allows a little bit of flexibility, meaning that the kit should hopefully not snap off. But I suppose we'll see later in the video whether it does stay on or not. So once the kit's stuck in place, I'm just going to hold it temporarily on with duct tape for now and leave that to dry. Okay, I think after a bit more looking, I've found that the arch itself, which goes around here, is actually okay. That seems to line up quite well with the, the panel gap just here. But it seems to be this piece that's the problem. It doesn't quite want to sit, in its home exactly right. Like when you line it up like that, it looks fine, but it's sort of not lining up there. In there is okay, but yeah, when you try and line it up with the actual arch itself, it's not it. So I'm going to fit the arch first and use that to then line this up, and then worst case scenario, I think what I can do is, re-fiberglass or sand down part of this to make the gap more even. So we've now got the passenger side arch stuck and taped into place, so we can now see what's going on with this front bumper piece. And after this fit now, I think I can see where the problem is. There's too much material at the top where that extension meets the wing extension, and that needs sanding down, which I then did, and it made it fit much, much better. So now we can get that stuck on and then finish off any last bits we want to do to that at a later date. So I'm reasonably happy with the way that's looking. We'll see properly when we take the tape off. I can see there is an ever so slight lip just there facing, this bit sticks out slightly more than this bit, but when it goes to paint we can try and finesse that a little bit, just make it a little bit, smoother. But apart from that, pretty happy with it. Just taking a bit of material off here really helped it out. Now, while this is drying, I'm going to have a look at the arch liners. Because one thing with a lot of wide body kits is you do tend to lose a decent arch liner, or you have to chop it up or make something completely custom. But I'm hoping with this one, I don't have to. And that's because the inside of the arch is kind of tucked into where the old arch would be. So that means I'm hoping I can tuck the wheel arch liner back into place and then just use the fiberglass of the arch as the rest of the arch liner. I may have to do some kind of messing around with it just to get it to fit nice, and maybe a little bit of trimming or a bit of heating, but nothing too mad compared to what you have to do on other body kits, because this one's not too extreme. So it's now the next day and hopefully the glue is dry so we can pull this tape off and see how it looks.
Show me the color when you turn me on. Cool, you tell me you want me down. Done it, I done this before you fall. Won't touch it, don't know I'm stolen. Too love to have.
How good does that look?
Gonna be sweet, telling me you need me. But I'm from a city that's high school. I give them this anymore, I go.
Now, not only is the fitment of the kit pretty nice, but as I said, I will be smoothing the gap, but it is absolutely rock solid. There's no way I could pull that off there. And once I've then, again, as I said, filled in, smoothed in the gaps, there may be the odd area where I can maybe get a little bit more glue in there, but it's rock solid. That's just the bumper loose because I haven't tied it in yet, but yeah, that ain't going anywhere. And even the panel gap remains nice, so that's the original panel gap for the car, and it remains about the same on the body kit too, so it's looking good. Well, I like it anyway. I realise a wide body isn't everybody's cup of tea, but I think this one is going to look good. This side, on the other hand, is, like I said, not perfect. As you can see, there is a slight lip here, which does need sanding down before I can paint it. It just needs a little bit of fettling just to get it exactly how I want it. Now, I do still need to find a solution for the arch liners. Even though they are back in, they are not quite fitting right because obviously the new arch sticks out further, and I need to find a way to get the original arch liner to kind of fit to the new wider arch. So I think it's going to need some relief cuts and some extra material putting in, and hopefully then that'll be okay, but it's not a million miles off. Right, next up is to sort out the only bit of interior damage that we've got in the car, and that is on the steering wheel. As you can see, there's a slight rip all the way down the left hand side, which is a bit ugly. Now, this is the perfect time to upgrade the interior and change that, but I don't want to lose my heated steering wheel function, which if I went for like a carbon fibre wheel, I would, but I've got a solution so I can keep the heated steering wheel and trim this a little bit nicer, and that comes from the guys at Wheel Finesse. So they have sent me out a whole load of goodies along with a new steering wheel cover for the I30N. Now, colour wise, I've gone for something which, well, I didn't intend to originally. I've gone for a red stripe with white stitching, and you might be thinking I've lost my mind because the original stitching here is blue, but we can't match that colour. Throughout the car, there is red and white in other areas, so on the mats, on the brake calipers, and also on the wing as well for now. So like I've said before, sometimes a contrast is the best way to do it. Rather than getting a bad match, do something that's completely different, then it can't not match. Make sense? So this is a DIY kit, but very kindly, Tom from Wheel Finesse, say hi Tom,
guys.
has offered to come up and fit this to the car for me to make sure I don't get it wrong. So Tom sets about sticking and stitching the new wheel cover onto the Hyundai steering wheel with a little supervision from the goodest boy in town. These steering wheel covers are a really good, quick, cheap alternative to getting a whole new wheel made because you can do it within a couple of hours without even taking your steering wheel off the car. And how much better does that look? Not only have we covered over the tears in the leather, but we've also customised it with this perforated leather on the side, the Alcantara at the top, the red stripe, the white stitching which goes with all of my dashboard, as you can see here. Ties it in with the red and the white on there. It's just sick. Now, if you want to grab yourself a Wheel Finesse steering wheel cover, they make them for all sorts of cars, not just Hyundai, so go to their website and you can configure your steering wheel cover on there with all sorts of colours and materials too, and use discount code SLIX, and that's going to save you a tasty 15% off your new steering wheel cover. Just so you know, they are DIYable, but they also do offer a fitting service as well, so you can do it yourself or pay someone else. So now we can get back on with this body kit. As we know, the front arches are on and they are rock solid. But now we have wider arches, we've got to figure out how much wider the wheels need to be. And as you can see, it's going to be by quite a bit because the standard wheels now sit really far inside these arches and look a bit lost. So now to figure out how much wider my new wheels need to be, I need to measure my old wheels all the way out to the arch to then calculate how much extra width or offset my new ones are going to need.
It's about 12 inches.
So I'd say on the front I'm going to need about an extra 40 centimetres of width on each side to get the wheels to sit flush with the arches. On the rear, I'm not so sure. We're going to have to fit those up in a minute. Now you might be wondering, is all of this worth it just to fit some wider arches? The fact you've then got to have the whole car painted, you've got to get new wider wheels, new tyres. It does become a really expensive process, but wide body cars just are on another level. If it be a factory wide body like a Yaris GR or a BMW M3 with the wider rear arches or something aftermarket like this, I just think it takes it to another level. And yes, in some cases it will make the car drive worse, but in some cases it's the opposite effect. It just depends how the car's set up and how wide that kit is. Oh, and I had also forgot to mention, we have actually had the car tuned on a dyno now. I think it made around 310 brake horsepower. I was going to mention it at some point, but the footage just doesn't line up with the video, so here's what it made. It's good, drives loads better, and the pops and bangs, if anything, are a bit more prominent than they were before as well. So thank you to the guys at Mallory Performance for doing that. But anyway, enough waffle, the front arches are done. Now I've got to look at the back arches and get those done so we can get the car ready for paint. But I'm going to start that right now, but you guys are going to have to wait until the next video to see it, where we'll get the rear arches on, we'll get the rest of the kit on, we'll start prepping it for paint, maybe even get it painted and get some new wheels on there as well. Trust me, it's going to be busy. So hit subscribe so you don't miss out on that, and also we are looking at a new car for the channel potentially very soon, so obviously you don't want to miss that one either. Hit a like on this video if you haven't already, and I'll catch you next time.